Today I'm going to take you along to one of my landscape photography locations near Dubai so I can show you how I do things. Or maybe it should be a how not to do it because it didn't quite go according to plan.
So first things first, you need to actually not hit that snooze button on your alarm and get up and get out there. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to get any photos. So I've done that. I got all my kit ready last night. So I'm just going to put the batteries into my bag and we're going to head out. So heading down on the lift, it's time to go.
Just driving out into the desert. We've been to this location before and we're gonna try it again. I've got a few photos here, but I'm not quite happy with the conditions that I've got. So I'm going out there again. I know exactly where I'm going, and that's one of the keys, is planning the location that you're going to before getting there. Because as you can see, it's pitch black outside. I won't be able to see what the location looks like. I've done the scout. I know exactly where I'm going. I know exactly where I'm gonna take that photo from. And that's the plan. It's been a bit foggy on the way, so we'll see what the conditions are like today.
So finally made it. It was a little bit of a hectic drive in. The sand dunes have changed quite a bit since I've been here last. Had to whack it right down into low ratio gear to actually get up the main bit of dune, but finally got to the location. Going to be photographing this. That'll be my main subject. Really like this one because you must have the leading lines of these rocks up to that rocky outcrop. The sun is sort of just rising over there. Oh, if we go, oh, wrong one. Yeah, sun is rising. It's going to be over there. Got these power lines, but they're going to be behind me. So I'm just walking along this rocky outcrop, trying to find a place, a good location where I've got a leading line going into that main rocky outcrop. It's a bit of a hike, but walking on this limestone is much easier than walking on the sand, kinda. So it's proven a little bit tricky to find a spot this morning. There's a lot of 4x4 tracks, footprints all over the place, and I'm probably not helping by walking all over the sand. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky finding a composition. I've walked along this rocky outcrop, so I'm just going to walk back to see what I can find. But this is part of photography. It's finding that composition that works.
So after a bit of back and forth and realizing that the sun was literally just about to come over the horizon, I settled with this place where I've got these nice ripples in the foreground. I'm not sure if I'm going to shoot it landscape or portrait, so I decided to get the tripod out. I started out with a 25mm lens to see what I could get, but the 4x4 tracks and the footprints were really annoying. As you can see in these next few images, no matter where I pointed the camera, I would always get the 4x4 tracks in my shot.
Now the sun's just come up, just popped over the horizon, and this is probably going to be a video of how not to do it. So I got stuck on the way. I was a little bit late and I was rushing. I've got a composition which I kind of like, and then I've got a few other compositions here as well that I'm going to try and see if they work. But it might be a success, it might be a failure. But this is the one thing with landscape photography. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you've just got to keep coming back to those locations time and time again. So the problem I've got is this was the leading line I was hoping to go up to my main focal point. But then this sand dune has built up since the last time I've been here, and then there's loads of 4x4 tracks there. So I'm thinking that's not going to work as well because all of the shadow is on this point. When I was here before, it lit it up really well. So maybe if I use both of the leading lines, we've got some nice features here in the dunes as well. So I may end up going for a close-up on these instead, so we'll see how that goes.
After this, I tried a few different shots, moving my camera around. I then changed to a wider lens. When you do go wider, what you'll find is that if you're at waist height or higher, it really does make everything seem really far away. So then I lowered my tripod, but as the tripod was getting in the way, I got rid of that for a bit to make it easier to find a composition. Once I found a composition, I then put the camera back on the tripod.
So this is the composition I'm going with at the moment. Like I said before, got these lines, this really nice detail in the sand, which the sun is catching. Got this line going up here, this line going up here as well. We've got that tree and that kind of a focal point up at the end here. We'll see how that turns out. We do have these 4x4 tracks here, which are a little bit horrible, but can't do much about those. So trying to make the best of a bad situation. Now let's talk about settings. Got it on a self timer, so I can press the button and then leave the camera to it. I'm at F11 because I want everything in focus from front all the way to the back. And then that gives me a shutter speed of 1/25th of a second, ISO 100, not blowing out any of my highlights. If I look at the histogram looks good. Everything's in the middle. It's not bunched to the right, it's not bunched to the left. One other thing, the sky's a little bit boring, so what I've done is I've put the horizon on the top third line, and I've got all of this detail in the foreground going up to my focal point. Not the world's best photo, but not the world's worst photo either. As I've got quite a lot of light around now, and my settings are at f9 1/50th of a second at ISO 100, I can start walking around and taking shots handheld now. So once the sun's come up, and it is quite bright, once that light is about, you can just go for a wander, start taking photos handheld, and sometimes you can get some really nice shots. So that's what I'm going to do now, just have a bit of a wander and see what I can find. I'll be taking pictures of close-ups of the ripples in the sand dunes because that always looks quite cool. And then I'll also try and get that focal point in as well. I'll switch around lenses. I've got my 85, I've got my 17 to 28mm as well. So I'm going to play around with those two lenses. And I've also got my RX10, which I kind of use as a telephoto lens. So this kind of shows that you can come to a place, you could do all the scouting in the world, but then when you come back in the morning or you come back the time that you think it's going to be good, it might be completely different. So there hasn't been any kind of wind on the desert for a while. So we've got all of these 4x4 tracks, footprints everywhere. Once a storm has blown through, the dunes all look nice and clean. So I think I'm going to have to come back to this location again after a big storm when all the dunes are fresh and new and there are a lot less 4x4 tracks. I got the RX10 out, started shooting at longer focal lengths, but no matter where I pointed the camera, I still got those 4x4 tracks and they were kind of ruining the natural look of the desert. But I think I've got one or two good ones. If so, I'll put them on the screen now. And if not, this shows that you've got to be persistent. You've got to keep coming back time and time again to these locations. And you've got to realize there are certain things in your control and certain things out of your control. But in coming back to a location time and time again, you'll kind of stack the odds in your favour, and you'll get that one time where the conditions will be absolutely perfect. Wasn't quite so for me today, but I thought I'd show you what goes into even my photography shoots. Shows that no one's perfect and you don't get it right every single time.
Where we got stuck.
Much easier coming down than going up.
So the moral of this video is to leave yourself a lot more time than you think, because you don't know what will go wrong or how the day will differ to what you had in mind. What I probably should have done was leave the house about an hour earlier. Also, to work with what conditions you have. Even though when I was out there I didn't think I got anything worthwhile, I was happy with a few of the photos from this location. So even though it might feel like you don't get anything good, make sure to go through all of your photos afterwards, because you might be a little bit surprised. And if you don't get the conditions you wanted, know that you're not alone, and it happens to all of us from time to time. I know I'll be going back to that location again when there are slightly different conditions, and I'll keep going back until I get the photograph that I want. And for anyone who likes outtakes, here are some from the actual shoot.
And today I didn't quite get the photo that I wanted, but saw a really nice sunset. No, sunrise. We've enjoyed a really nice sunrise this morning. Haven't quite got the photos, but we're out in the fresh air and I'm rambling again.
I feel massively troubled soon by not getting a tune.
Yeah, so the drive in, I kind of made my wife a little bit travel sick because I think it took 5 attempts to get up that one dune. And it was a little bit bumpy, but yeah. She's doing all right now, aren't you?
That does make me sound massively precious.
You're not massively precious, it's all right.